that's enough of that crap. Welcome to Naked Zombie Paranormal Radio with your hosts, Brad Scott and Woodsy.
Tonight I have a very good friend with me, ex-UK expat. He put the ish into English. Please welcome Mr. David Clipson, who is the founder of Ghost Hunters New Zealand, happens to be a TAPS family member. G'day Dave, how are you? And thanks for joining me tonight.
Hi, g'day Brad, no problem. You're welcome as always, and hi g'day to you listeners.
Oh mate, look, absolutely. Listen, what we're going to discuss tonight is, I've known Dave for some time, and we've been on a few investigations together, and one thing that struck me about you, David, is the fact, not because you're English, mate, but you've experienced the other side of the world when it comes to dealing with the paranormal. I think this is a very good point to bring up. There is a huge difference for us, say, living in the Southern Hemisphere, to what actually investigating the paranormal is like overseas.
Yeah, I think it's more widely kind of acceptable. So what somebody once said, if you haven't got a ghost in your house, then you're not normal, and that seems to be the kind of normal for people in Ireland, Wales, England, and Scotland kind of thing. It used to be years ago that it was quite easy to be able to go investigate, spend time, but since in recent times it's got a lot harder. Like the last time I went back overseas, I spent a few months overseas and did try to arrange a couple of investigations while I was over there. But anything to do with governmental buildings or anything like that, governmental land, you need to have waivers, insurance documents. You need to have electronic test certificates, so that if a piece of your equipment might possibly catch fire and burn the place down, you're covered by insurance. And so that's kind of stopped the smaller amateur people from being able to go and investigate some of these really old, lovely buildings, with they're steeped in history, steeped in not just history about the people who've been there previously, but also the amount of paranormal activity that's been mentioned over the years to people, even not publicly, just handed down and like, oh yeah, if you go into this room, if you expect this, we try and know about it, that kind of thing. So yeah, the sad about that really, I mean, when you get larger TV programs who are able to then obviously get that foot in the door and be able to do these kind of investigations in the larger places, that's great. But for the smaller groups now, it's getting a lot harder. And I've started speaking again with some old school friends. I mean, they've got groups which do TV programs, and they know people like the Most Haunted Crew, that kind of thing. They say to me that it gets harder and harder. People worry about bad publicity, and it's not meant to be about that. It's just meant to be about trying to find answers to questions. I mean, like yourself and me, we've spoken about this on many occasions. The whole point is we're trying to find out why, what is causing it. Is it normal or is it a paranormal event? And most of the time, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a normal, everyday cause, which is given these so-called paranormal related issues.
Do you find, do you find that there is much difference, because you've investigated in 2 totally different continents? Do you find it coming over when you first came over to New Zealand here, that the cultural differences in investigating were something you had to get used to? Because I know, even coming from the Tasman, myself from Australia, it was quite different in some aspects.
Yeah, I quite agree. It is different, and for me, it felt more like a challenge. I think I was put off a little bit by it initially, but then, after speaking with friends at the time, and I'd already had Ghost Hunt up and running at the time, which was just myself, and then we were just speaking about, it'd be really interesting to be able to investigate not just by European settler culture, but the indigenous inhabitants of New Zealand, like that culture as well. But then you've got to think about, well, how are we actually going to do this? Because and unfortunately, for most of us, we are kind of culturally quite dumb. We don't understand things like myths and legends of other cultures because it's never really been something we needed to know about. So that was something that had to be looked into. Things like how to be respectful on land, that kind of thing, because it is a huge leap to actually be able to investigate other cultures that are outside of your own, because you have to try and understand that culture. So yeah, I totally agree. When I first came across it, was kind of a shock, because you think, well, wow, so much to learn on top of what you've already learned.
Yep.
I think when you get into it, some of things like when we've tried to catch EVPs and that kind of thing, one of the things I've desperately wanted was to have an EVP in a completely different language, that we could maybe get somebody from a different culture to say, oh yeah, I know exactly what that means, and because that's fantastic. We may not know what it is, but somebody else can verify that this voice is of a non-European person.
Speaking of that, I mean, and that's one thing people got to realise. Even though you may be saying something in English, the EVP recording you're getting back could be in a totally different language.
Yeah, and it could be, in an unrelated answer to your question. I mean, you might be asking, what's your name, why are you here? But whoever's there might feel your presence is not wanted, and they're actually just telling to go away in a polite way.
We've had that happen before.
And they don't understand what you're saying, but they're just telling you to go away. They don't want you there, sort of thing. So, I think that's interesting, and I think that's where if you can have people on your team who are bilingual, it just helps so much when you are reviewing evidence and that kind of thing, rather than having to send it away to people to find out what kind of language it could be, because there are many different cultures in New Zealand as well. Obviously, you've got the Maori who are here way before, but then you've had European settlers. You've got people from Germany, as well as other countries. You've got China, that kind of thing. So there are lots of people who speak different languages, and that could potentially be an issue. But if you can find somebody who understands those languages, then it's a great tool to have if you can have it. But like you're saying, it was a challenge and a bit of a scary one at first, but highly exciting when we did actually start doing it.
Well, one thing I must say, Dave, is that when I first moved to New Zealand, I mean, even when I was in Australia, I knew about you and your website. You have been around for quite some time. You're not a newbie to the field whatsoever. You've been investigating close to nearly 18 years, haven't you, mate?
Yeah, it's been one of those things where, like, from in my teens, in my family, I think because of my family upbringing, goings on which weren't normal were quite openly talked about. So it wasn't kind of like that those sort of things were kept away from the children. I mean, at the end of the day, if something moved or if some voice was heard, it would be talked about, and I wonder if that's such and such, that kind of thing. And when I was a child, I was very fortunate to be able to see a full-bodied apparition with my mum. And I say a child, I was probably about 7 years old.
Right.
We both went to the doctors afterwards because we wanted to know why kind of thing, and of course the doctors would say, it must have been like a group hallucination of the same thing, seeing the same thing at the same time. So we had that from an early on sort of stage, and from the small town I'm at, where I came from, because it was quite a close-knit community and everybody knew the family, that kind of thing, getting access to old places wasn't too much of an issue. And when I went to Nottingham University, I was able to then obviously have access to other places as well. I mean, Nottingham's one of those places. It's just got, it's just thick with history.
Can you tell me just quickly, Dave? I mean, I think people are very interested, especially within New Zealand here in Australia, who haven't had the opportunity to investigate over in Europe and places like that. I mean, look, we have a fairly young Pākehā history, which is, sorry, if anyone knows what Pākehā means, it basically means, white fella. When you're like a European like ourselves, and you go over to investigate, or you come from the UK, Ireland and Scotland and all the European countries like that, we're talking the amount of some of these buildings, they're hundreds and hundreds and older, aren't they, in years of age?
Yeah. 400, 500 years old. I mean, some of the castles, I think they were the ones that are still standing. I mean, some of them were ruins. And you're literally walking through just walls with no ceiling, and it's all open. But some of them are, I mean, hundreds upon hundreds of years old, and there's just layer upon layer of history there, which, is there some kind of sedimentary layer there which is hanging around? Don't know. But we just try and ask the questions and hopefully get a response. And that's the whole, the gamble. If you like, you go there with a tape recorder and armed with video cameras and digital equipment, and you're just trying to capture something. But it's even a different feel. I think when you're going into like a really, really old place, something like Edinburgh. Edinburgh's a brilliant city. I love it. And I used to love going into the old caverns and the vaults because they were so old, and the air was just thick when you went into. It was just like a completely different world. And I loved spending like 8 hours in the darkness down there. It sounds kind of crazy, but it was an adrenaline rush. It was just you're going around with notepad and pen.
Yep.
Digital camera, audio recorder, and you're just trying to pick up anything, and you're writing down when you experience this sort of thing, what time, and then you get out at sort of 6 in the morning, and the sun was up, and the milkmen will be doing their delivery. And it was like you just came out refreshed. It was like an amazing night, but it does feel different to investigate on the side of the world. I don't know whether it's because the cultural history is ingrained into the buildings, whereas, I think because the buildings have been standing for so long, we've had that much more chance to maybe absorb whatever it is that can be absorbed, which may cause residual haunts, that kind of thing.
That brings up a valid question as well. Like, I'm like, you've known me for long enough, but I'm a firm believer just because it's old doesn't make it haunted. But this is from my experience on investigating this side of the world, which could be totally different to yours. What's your view on that?
I completely agree. Just because it's an old building, it does not mean it's haunted. I've been in completely new buildings which have certain feels about them, and whether that's just because it's on an emotional kind of a mental level, that the way the rooms are designed, they make you feel paranoid, or whether it's to do with dodgy wiring because it hasn't been shielded. You're getting, all this EMF radiation, if you like, coming off there, causing this EMF sickness, basically.
Basically, sorry to interrupt, but basically for people who don't know what that is, EMF. Dave, would you like to explain what EMF is?
Yeah, with anything like electrical equipment, that kind of thing, you get electromagnetic fields, and almost like electromagnetic radiation.
Yep.
Now, the more current, the more voltage, that kind of thing is going through something, the more potential radiation that can emit. Now, most cables that go around the houses and stuff are shielded, but in some older houses, or some houses where maybe costs were cut, and the wire was a bit cheaper, that kind of thing, you can actually go with a special meter, and sometimes you can stand in a room and the amount being picked up on it's called a Gauss meter, and they're measured in milligauss. And for instance, something like 10 milligauss is the equivalent of having your head next to a microwave while it's running.
I mean, that's what a lot of people don't understand, that this is where you can actually get. We'll get back onto the UK side of it. Just that I do get emails and phone calls from time to time when we explain what a certain bit of equipment is. And for the people who are not in the paranormal field, who do listen to the radio show, they ask me these questions. Brad, what is this? What are you talking about? Basically, your EMF, like I said, electronic magnetic frequency. Excuse the stutter. Now,
some people say frequency, some people say field.
Yeah, I mean it's
I like to say radiation.
it's a much of a muchness, but basically, at the end of the day, is that people can actually get quite ill from this, can't they, if they're exposed to it for long periods of time?
There's a heap of symptoms. I mean, hallucinations are pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Skin irritation, nausea. Kind of feeling like the sick feeling, dizziness, sleep deprivation. Paranoia, anxiety, depression. There's a whole heap of symptoms, and we had one house where all the residents, the whole family, were feeling this, and we went in and we did a sweep, and they all had the beds aligned where the head part of the bed, it was basically almost like say if the side of the house was facing north.
Yep.
Their heads were all facing north. They were sleeping that way. And the problem was there was a big industrial electrical cable running down the side of the house to an industrial unit at the back.
Yep.
And that pumping out heaps and heaps. I mean, it was almost like a 10 all the time. And they were sleeping in that.
This is where a lot of the older houses actually come into play because they don't have the proper insulation. Especially the older your structure, because look, basically from my understanding, a lot of your standard housing isn't new because it is built up next to each other. You have a larger population and quite a small country. Is that correct?
Yeah, and things are added, of course, later on as things expand. In the UK, a lot of the buildings are made from brick. That's very, very, very standard. Where here it's mainly like kind of a wood, concrete and wood.
Yep.
I think it's easier for these fields and frequencies to pass through the wood, whereas with concrete, I think it does give a bit more of a barrier, brick, that kind of thing. It's still a serious problem, and a lot of people just don't know about it unless they've actually got a meter.
And do you think that
around the house?
And do you think that, because everyone says, "Oh, listen, we want to go and investigate in the UK because they're old, everything's haunted," do you think that new people within the field should take a little bit of a step back and actually go to that assumption if they have the opportunity to visit the UK, or Europe or any places like that, as a paranormal side of it, not to get your hopes up dramatically that every castle you may go into or every old building you go into is going to show paranormal activity?
Don't expect anything from a place. I mean, it's like most people have for me, I have my own kind of guide I live by, like hope for the best but plan for the worst.
Yep.
And if you're going to go into any place, you can't expect that something's going to happen, but you hope that something will. And it's the same whether it's a 400-year-old building. It may be that you go in and then nothing happens on the night. 2 months down the line, something happens and nobody's there. I mean, the furniture's found moved, or a video camera picked up something walking across the room. You just can't expect something to happen at the time you're there. But I do think it's a good practice if you can to be able to. It's expensive, but if you can get across to the other side of the world. Go and visit America, go and visit the East Coast, places like Boston, Rhode Island, where taps are from, New York. They've got some really lovely old-style buildings from the 1700s, from the original sort of colonial years, basically when obviously a lot of immigrants were going to the New World from England and that kind of thing. And so they built buildings very similar. And there are some beautiful buildings, and they do feel different. And then you go across again, maybe to Ireland, or to Wales, or Scotland, or England, and each building is different. Like in Scotland, a lot of the buildings are built from stone. They look completely different. It's like square block stone. In Wales, they build a lot from slate as well. But when you walk into a building, when they're made from different materials, you get a different feel. It's almost like walking into a soundproof room. You know, when you're going into a studio, like we might go into a studio to do a recording.
Yep.
As soon as you walk in, it's different because it's been shielded.
Yep.
Especially so that, you know, you don't have an echo. Your acoustics are perfect, ready for recording. And it's kind of like that. You're walking into a different kind of atmosphere when you do go into these older buildings. So it is worth going and checking out. Getting access-wise, you're probably good. You're probably better to actually find a group well established, like in the UK, and tag along with them.
Yep.
Because they're more likely to be trusted and have access. And that way, you're not going to be disappointed with a no, sorry, we don't allow that. You know, you can tag along with the group and be able to experience it.
But you find that the UK side of it, especially investigating, I mean, because of the history and the buildings and the culture, which is totally different as well, that the paranormal side of thing is more open towards people, isn't it? It's not so much. I mean, we're still a fairly young country. Like I've said this a few times, that New Zealand is a young country when it comes to the paranormal. We only have a few groups here. We are small.
If you think about it, I mean, there's 2 or 3 main groups. I mean, there's Ends of Paranormal and Ghost Hunters, and we pretty much cover the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Ends of Paranormal, you know, you'll be covering Australia as well.
Yep.
Now, well, I mean, if you think about how many people there are in the country, 4 million people, coming from the UK where there's like 70-odd million people.
That's right.
In about the same size country, it's completely different. I mean, so there could be so many more cases and so many more people saying, "Oh, we've got issues," and it's whether people experience them that actually get brought up, and then of course we get to know about them and actually get asked for help, or can we just look at a picture because of this or that or the other? Yeah. So I mean, I've completely lost my train now.
I'm a habit of doing that to you, mate.
I was thinking about something else, and I thought, oh, I better talk about that. But then, no, I just...
No, look, it's all part of it. It's fine, mate. It's all part of it, really is. Look, the investigations me and yourself have been on. You know, we've been on some fantastic places. We'll take, the old Nelson, there's just a picture theatre. The oldest theatre in New Zealand. Was it haunted?
Yeah, it's actually...
no.
That one's the oldest working wooden theatre in the Southern Hemisphere. So, I mean, we were lucky enough to be the first group to have investigated that theatre before they started doing the renovation work. And it, again, has got a lot of history, and it was an interesting place. And when we went there, it was kind of interesting, but when it had its guts stripped out, it was almost like part of it was missing.
Yep.
You know, and although it was interesting, it was quite an uneventful night. Nice to be there.
Oh, look, it was absolutely lovely to be there, but you can taste the dust as you're walking through it.
That's it. And you know that any picture you're taking, you're going to be getting, you know, I'm not going to say orbs, but because they're not, they're dust particles, you know, and you're going to get other particles, like there might be something in the walls, you know, I mean, you don't know, there could be like asbestos. So you have to be really careful with that. But for me, it's kind of like, I don't know whether you feel the same, but the younger generation, if you up to people into the 20s at the moment in New Zealand, I think there are less people who think about the paranormal than there are the older generation, like people in the 30s, the 40s, 50s. It seems to be that even in the UK it's the same. The younger generation, they don't really think about it more because there's so much more to think about.
There's so much else going out there than actually exploring the unexplainable.
You know, movies, and yet it used to be kind of like you get told about things like this and you get told about things like that, and that seems to be getting lost in these times. And I think when people then start experiencing things which aren't normal, that's when they start to panic. You know, and then they're like, "Oh, who do we turn to?" kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, most of the time, for myself, I mean, like we've talked about, you know, before going on to investigations and stuff, we'll do our own sort of cleansing before we'll go in, our own private way of kind of almost putting a block up just in case someone could possibly try and connect with us, and we take it back to our families.
I mean, that's
So that's the last thing we
I've
want.
brought something home myself once, and because you know exactly what I'm like, I'm the big grumpy Australian guy who's 6'2", weighs 115 kilos, and doesn't worry about too much. But even I brought something home with me, which my wife wasn't real pleased with. A few years ago when we were first together, actually, 13 odd years ago.
It's funny, because Sarah, although she's understanding, she doesn't like me doing it.
Oh no, neither does my wife, Raylene. If you listen to this, Bubby, yes, I'm sorry what I do, but I enjoy it.
Her way, I wouldn't be doing it anymore, or I wouldn't be running the site and spending so much time doing it.
Yep.
And I can understand where she's coming from. But with her family, it was really nice and interesting to be able to get another case like it, where I do try and talk about the fact that it's not just houses and stuff that can have attachments, but also objects. And her parents and sisters, they were having huge issues. They were in rented houses, and they moved from one house into another, and they were still having huge issues with things appearing in the rooms, like I won't say shadow people, but it was more like a black mass.
Yep.
And almost like jumping onto the bed and almost like suffocating,
Yep.
And I thought, well, they've already moved 3 times, and it kept coming to them each time. So it's not going to be something that's actually in the house. If anything, it's going to be something that's attached to somebody or an object. And by a process of elimination, basically they took certain things out, put them in the garage. When I say garage, shed basically on the other side of the garden. And after a while, they found exactly what object was causing the issue. And it was just a pair of Chinese stress balls. You know the ones?
Yeah, I know the ones when you twirl in the palm of your hand and...
They go ding, ding, ding.
Yep.
I mean, tourists, you pick them up if you're like, when we were in Hong Kong, I'd have picked them up from a market. And
yep.
I loved it. I used to have a pair. But for some reason, that pair had something attached which was causing the family no end of grief. And as soon as they got rid of those,
yep.
That was it. Problem gone. There's no problem anymore. Before, it was kind of like, they were saying, they were kind of like, oh yeah, Dave, that's his freaky thing at night, running around buildings with cameras and stuff. And after I mentioned about that, I think they have a great respect for it.
Well, that's another valid point, Dave. Is the simple fact is, like I tell people, ask me questions. It's, it is, look, New Zealand will come into its own eventually. With the paranormal side of it, it is still very. I know I keep repeating myself, but it is still very young, and people got to understand that it's something that just doesn't happen overnight. Even though with all the TV shows out there and radio shows like mine and everything like that, it's people will take their time to sit back and go, well, is this a paranormal event? Do I really need someone to help? Who do I contact to help me? I mean, and that's a very valid thing. Where in the UK and overseas, because it's been so engrossed in history and folklore. I mean, you have the fairies. I'm not talking about the lovely fairies with the wings and the pixie dust here. I'm talking about the nasty little buggers that if you build your house near their walkway or on the corner of their land, so to speak, all hell will break loose for you. These are little elementals, I think you call them. Is that correct?
Elementals is the word, yeah. And another thing as well is most places, religious sites, that kind of thing, are all built on ley lines.
Yep.
And people kind of forget about those now. I mean, a lot of people don't even know what a ley line is.
Yep.
And yet most of every single religious building in Europe and in the States, and the old practice was to build it on a ley line.
Yep.
Because it was almost like a spiritual highway, but people forget about that kind of thing too. But yeah, same thing, especially in Ireland and Wales, they had very strong, if you like, I won't say it's not won't say it's nothing to do with paganism or anything like that. It's, like you say, the folklore.
Yep.
Like, you might get some kind of elemental spirit which is not happy with you where you are.
That's right, and it wants you to go.
Yeah.
It wants you out of there, basically. You're invaded on there too. Dave is a founder of Ghost Hunters New Zealand. Dave, listen, while we're quickly there, before we touch back on the UK side of things, mate, would you like to give your website a big plug? Mind you, it is on the front page of my website. Go for it.
As I believe yours is on mine as well, Brett.
Oh, listen, we're
sharing the love.
We're sharing. Sure, we'll talk about that. That's another story.
The site's been going for a while. I'm trying to think how many years I've been going now, but over here anyway. It's just Ghost Hunters New Zealand, so ghosthunters.co.nz. At the moment, there's a skeleton crew looking after the website. I have got a new team coming on board to actually look after the website, people's queries, that kind of thing, because what I'm trying to do at the moment is step away from the back-end work so I can concentrate more on the development of equipment, that kind of thing. And also being able to go on to larger investigations.
And your new daddy, I must congratulate you there, mate. Just like to tell everyone, Dave is a father for the first time. He has a beautiful little boy.
And a very vocal one at that. So, yeah, he keeps us up. He keeps us up. Yeah, your sleep is definitely a very precious commodity, which we don't get much of at the moment. But I love him to bits, and I do try and spend as much time as I can with him. And also Sarah, because it's not fair for Sarah on her own to look after him. So I can step in and take him for an hour and a half, 2 hours, give Sarah a break or charity. But
as you do as a good parent, mate. Okay, well, listen, what we're going to touch on now is, mate, you've investigated some awesome places. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, but you've actually done the Hellfire Caves, is that correct?
The Hellfire Caves, yeah, they used to be a lot more open to people than they are now. It's a bit like Nara 2 caves here, like back in the day, they used to be pretty much, they were just caves and people could just go into them.
Because they're made of chalk, isn't it? It's all carved out of chalk, is that correct? Like a chalky substance?
It's like an elaborate cave network. It goes down and then there's like roots off roots, and it was all to do with, the Hellfire Club was more, off memory now, going back, was more to do with like quite well-to-do people who had money and influence and power and that kind of thing. It was kind of I suppose a little bit like us going out, on a binge night and getting completely wasted and doing whatever we wanted to, but they could because they had money and power.
And power and influence and the rest of it. But the thing is... the thing is that the Hellfire Caves, the Hellfire Caves, above it's a church, isn't it, mate? So you had the satanic side of it underneath, where they had all the rituals and all the fun stuff that we probably get arrested for nowadays. Right up above was a church. Is that correct?
Well, that's an interesting thing, actually, because there's a lot of sites in the UK and in Europe as well, and even like in the States and in all different parts of the world where you get people who are into the satanic religion who do have their meeting places near positive religions.
Yep.
I'll say satanic because the whole point about Satan, obviously Satan it's not a Christian thing. It goes way back because if you look at Christianity, if you look at Islam and Judaism, the devil is in all three of those.
Yep.
So, it goes way back before even that. So, it's weird how you get these organisations which like to try and I don't know whether it's kind of like a rubbing in the face kind of thing of God or whatever, but where they do set up shop right next door to an important, spiritual gathering place for people. I mean, whether it's to try and affect other people's spiritual journey or something, so that when they go to church, God's not going to listen to them or something like that. I don't know. I mean, there's even talk on a similar subject where even people who are, into the satanic ritual, that kind of thing, who are craftsmen, who make things like woodwork stuff and metalwork, who actually bless all their creations negatively.
Yeah, with that.
And pass it around as well, so
Yep.
all that as well. But it's crazy. In Edinburgh, it's the same. Underneath Edinburgh, there's a notorious Hellfire Club as well, so I've been to that one as well.
Wow.
But they're quite small places, but I think they were just gathering places where basically debauchery and that kind of thing could go ahead with, without anybody knowing about it.
So basically saying it's a typical Friday out night and just what I'd get up to, down the local pub back in Australia.
Yeah,
stop it.
On a much higher, nastier level.
Well, I don't know, mate. I can get pretty nasty. You get a few rums on me, you'll find out.
Anything could go. I mean, people might have been taping there, and they could have been killed without anybody breathing a word of it, because it was
because it was part of the culture at the time, wasn't it? This is what. Yeah, this is the whole heaven and hell thing came into it, wasn't it? Especially around those sort of areas.
There was a lot of, I mean, obviously, I think you think about things like when the Spanish Inquisition was going on, that kind of thing. Anything that wasn't through the letter of the Bible or something was considered, heresy, and you're going to the stake. Whereas these days, I mean, I think we're very much open-minded. But with this kind of thing, I mean, if you think about how the things they did back then, if you think back to how strict the church was then, you can actually get an idea of how rebellious this was against the church, if you know what I mean, by the things that were actually going on in these places. These days, a bachelor party might go out to a club which might have strippers and that kind of thing, and it's kind of like, it's all normal. And in those days, to have people parading around naked, and it was, that was terrible. I mean, it was a really bad thing.
Yep.
So to have things like fornication and that kind of thing with animals as well as people, it really was kind of going against, if you like, God in their eyes. So it's quite interesting, the history, but like you brought up the fact that these places were actually established very much near spiritual sites where people went to try.
It was like a slap in the face for the church, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But they did know. But the thing was, the churches did know these things were going on, because half the time it was the actual clergy and the people associated with the church would attend these functions in the Hellfire Caves.
When you've got well-to-do, whether it's a power thing, where the people think that just that they'll gain more power and that kind of thing, influence, and it's kind of like you wonder why people would have done it. But I suppose it depends what kind of moral conscience you have. I mean, if you are of a moral conscience where you wouldn't get involved in anything dodgy because you just believe it's wrong, then I think that's the way you are. There are people out there who wouldn't think twice about hurting other people for money.
Yeah.
It's just a job, and they wouldn't think twice about it. So I think it depends on what kind of person you are as well. But I think there are quite a few places which used to meet underground that were originally, I think, dug out for almost like for crypts, for storing the dead, that kind of thing. And I think there are a couple of sites for things like plague victims, that kind of thing, which were also used for rituals. So, interesting history, and sad, but interesting at the same time.
But it is part of history, though, mate. That's the thing, and these are what, and this plays a prevalent part in a lot of investigators or paranormal researchers over in that side of the world, doesn't it, mate? Is the fact that you have all this history to choose from, and places that actually still exist and are actually run today.
And I think you need to learn from the past. don't forget the past.
No.
Remember it, but learn from it. And and it's like I said, don't never forget things like the wars previous, because then it might help prevent the wars from happening again. And all of those millions of people who lost their lives. And I think that's very much how it should be. Remind people these things are here. One thing I'll say from the group straight away, if people have got problems, is well, seek out your local spiritual advisor. If you're religious, then if you're not, then speak to somebody and just say, look, I think you've got a problem, and can you help us out?
You bring up a very, very good point, Dave. It's for people who, like myself and Dave, like we've known each other for quite some time. We've both been in the field for around the same amount of years. That's about right, eh, mate? Well, what do we work it out to be? God knows. What did we work it out to be? How many years' experience between the two of us?
No, it was coming up to, was it 38 between us or 35 between us?
Oh, something like this. It's some stupid figure. But basically, what we're trying to say is that I'm not trying to float our boats here, but it's saying you don't always have to rely on a paranormal investigator to solve your problems of a paranormal nature.
Yeah, that's it. And it may be that paranormal investigators come around and, like we said about things like dodgy wiring.
Yep. You just may need a good electrician.
You call an electrician, that's it. Because
that's the thing.
Problem.
Yeah.
And so, for myself, I have my own beliefs. I will not force them on anybody else. I think people should have the right to believe in what they want to believe without hurting other people. But I will suggest that people who are mature in their religion, if you like, and say religion, faith a big part of that. Religion is just a set of rules and guidelines around it. But you do have people who can be very talented in that kind of area where they can do blessings on houses, which are very successful.
Yeah.
And some people go and do blessings on houses and they aren't very successful. I was lucky enough with the priest who married me and my wife. He was very open to the fact. When we went to meet him, and I think I mentioned that I ran ghost hunters and that kind of thing, and I thought, oh, here we go, I'm going to get a lecture.
Yep.
I've
received a couple of those in my time too, mate, from people of the cloth.
I'd known you guys earlier because you could have filmed some of the blessings I did, where the houses be blessed. Like sometimes the doors would suddenly fly open, like a wind would go through the house, and then the doors would slam shut after he'd finished the blessing. And he said, if people could see that kind of thing going on, perhaps they'd have more respect for, what we don't know about. And it's very interesting.
That is a good thing. That the fact that, like yourself, I'm all for if someone wants help and they feel they need to call us. We keep things mostly confidential. We don't make a show out of it, except what we're doing tonight. Yeah. But it's the fact that there are other alternatives out there. Like you're saying, if you have a certain faith or religious base, contact the people you deal with on a regular basis. Contact whether it be a Catholic priest or Protestant or Indian or whoever. If you feel that you're going to get the problem resolved by contacting your local parish, I'm using the parish in a general term, then by all means, give them a go. If you want someone to come in and research and give you some answers of a more of a specific scientific nature, then yes, contact your local group. Sometimes some groups out there, and you know for yourself, mate, that actually can offer both. They do have some with the capabilities of offering a blessing and stuff like this. I personally can't because I've got no idea how to do that. But if I need to, I contact someone within the community who can.
That's it. Yeah. I'm very lucky in the fact that with some things I'm jack of all trades but master of none.
Yep.
I've been able to study lots of things, and I've just had a very good life, and I've managed to go and do a lot of things. But I would never ever go to somebody's house and say that I could bless that house for them, because it's way out of my league, and that wouldn't be fair on the person. Like you say, I would get somebody who was qualified to do it. There are some programs I've watched, I won't name any, from abroad. They're not homegrown ones, and where most of the cast are maybe in their late teens, and they have their names in the group, and they are demonologists, and this kind of thing, and you think, hang on, they're only 18. And yet they're demonologists and they're experts in the occult and stuff like that. And some people are doing this for 20, 30 years and they're still not experts.
No, I mean,
So
you've got great people like Mr. Haffis. Mr. Zaffis has been around the field for 30 odd years. He is a demonologist. It's that whole point of being is it is very hard, and it is hard for, I mean, I know we're getting totally off track, and we tend to do this on the show, is that we tend to bounce all over the place, which is fine because it keeps it interesting, that it is very hard for people out there, especially who are experiencing problems of a paranormal nature. Who do we get in contact? Because there are a lot of groups out there. And look, folks, you really have to do your homework. I'm sorry, it's not a matter of just looking on your website and seeing who's who. Find out, get references, get checks, see how they can do. Look, one group may not be suitable for you, but another group may. That's about right, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, and it's like anything. If you were going to get somebody to build a house for you, you'd look for somebody who was qualified, who'd been doing it for a long time, was good at their trade. Yeah. You wouldn't just call somebody who's like they just read a book and they just learned how to do a joint, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there are people out there who have literally just learned roughly what it is to be a paranormal investigator. They don't know the entirety of how huge the subject is.
Or they've watched a couple of TV shows.
We go off on a tangent. In fact, it's such a huge subject. And yeah, I think people have to be careful on who they choose to actually come out and help them, because getting the wrong person could cause more problems than it's worth.
We're not trying to put anyone off getting a group in. I'm just saying that there are many outstanding fine groups out there. I mean, people
that's right. I mean, there are people out there who are wise beyond their years.
Yes,
but there are people out there who I think maybe jump into things too quickly. And the problem is that can affect the people they're trying to help. And they might have all good intentions.
Best intentions in the world, but it's something they didn't. I mean, I always say it this way. Look, even though, I've been doing this for a little wee while myself, there are certain things that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pipe pole because I don't have the knowledge or understanding about it, because it's something that I wouldn't deal with. I would not deal with anything to do with exorcisms. Deal with occult-based stuff that I don't understand yet. You know what I mean? Terminologies for stuff like that. I mean, if you want someone to go in and check your house out because I've got a building construction background, that you might have some paranormal activity, then, I'm your man. But I don't have all the answers.
Exorcisms and things, I mean, it sounds corny, but, the Catholic Church, I mean, if you go back to their archives, they've been researching this kind of thing for hundreds of years.
Thousands of years.
And they have specially selected priests, to do exorcisms, and they're only allowed to do exorcisms if given
special permission from the Pope.
Permission from the Pope himself. So
it's not just a matter of going and doing it. They have to follow the channels.
But I think sometimes as well it's easy to get like an internet diploma, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You can say, you can put out a form online, you can say, I actually went to MIT, and I've got a diploma from MIT, and it's not real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it looks good on your wall.
I've got my Microsoft one sitting here as well.
Yeah. But the thing is, basically what we're saying is that, look, I guess we're speaking from a more, because we are both from different countries, we guess we've both been doing it for a long time, is that you just got to look past the flashy lights and the blinky things, if you know what I mean. You got to actually look deep within yourself and say, hey, is this the right group for us? If we need that help. Like I said, there are some absolutely fantastic, awesome groups out there that amaze me and amaze Dave. Newbies of the field who are just starting off. I really like to see new people within the field, but little steps. to start off with. Don't go diving into investigation that may lead out of control. And I think this is where the UK is slightly different to us, because you guys have the history. You have, it's been around for so long, investigating the paranormal. You know, you guys are more open, so you're more involved in it than I say we were here originally.
Yeah, I think we're lucky. We've had people who've been in it for a long, long time, and like you say, people learn from other people. And
I mean, I learned from a guy, a British guy. You know, he taught me in my very early days because he had the knowledge and experience.
And yet nowadays that seems to be lacking. People don't pass down the knowledge like they used to.
Yeah.
It's mainly learned from the web, or it's
or
learned
TV.
from watching a TV program or something like that. And you lose out, I think, on the finer points of the subject, because things aren't necessarily pointed out. Quickly, for instance, Ghost Hunters International, that kind of thing. When they film, it's not like we do. Like we walk around and we just film everything.
We just go off the cuff. We just fly straight off the cuff.
That's it. I mean, they're stopped. They have to rewind. They have to redo a take, that kind of thing. Now, it may be that they've seen something, and then it's re-filmed again, because the camera wasn't in the right angle. The scene, they did capture something, but they needed to redo like the walking in shock kind of value, leading up to that. So, I mean, people need to realise that with television shows as well. They are television shows, but real investigations do go on in the background with these groups as well.
Oh, of course. And you've actually, speaking of taps, and look, we've only got about another 7 minutes to go, Dave, if we've got to wrap it up tonight. But you are a TAPS family member.
Yeah, the TAPS family representative for New Zealand.
Yep.
I'm lucky enough to have met a few of the TAPS team.
Yep.
And I regularly speak to TAPS over in the US. We have a special kind of forum and communication system where we can get in touch.
Yep.
And there are kind of like groups, seminars we can go to in the US to all get together, and there'll be people like Grant, other members of the team there going through, tango or something like that, actually sort of speaking about issues they've had or big learning curves, that kind of thing, new technology. It's interesting, but that's a lot to take on as well, because you're also then learning another group's rules. So you've not just got the paranormal field you're trying to learn, you're also trying to learn another group and their ways of doing things.
Well, I don't think that's a bad thing, to be honest, especially if you are in your group. Look, personally, I think TAP's absolutely fantastic. They've actually done a lot for the field. Would I be a TAPS family member? Probably not. I like doing my own thing. Yeah, I'm very much my own person in what I do and how I do things. But for someone who wants to be and who's new in the field and wants to get involved with the field, I think what they're doing is absolutely a fantastic job, because they actually are getting it out there to the world where we necessarily couldn't.
I'm thinking they do try and debunk things. They try and debunk, when they find something, well, like, what else could have happened, kind of thing. Whereas, and I'm not downing Most Haunted or anything like that, because I know, and I'm friends with some of the members of Most Haunted as well.
Yeah, Yvette, she's fantastic.
It's a television show at the end of the day, and a lot of it is, like, I get Kieran O'Keefe at the end, he'll basically put a reasonable hat on and say, look, we had this experience, we can't say it wasn't another crew member, apparently there were another crew members there, but because we don't have a camera in that position, we can't say it was for sure definitely paranormal.
Yep.
And so, you get the main TV program then, which has all the shock value.
Oh, of course it does.
And then afterwards you get the sensibility coming through. So, and Kieran, I have spoken to him as well, and I've actually asked him if he would like to do some comments on the website on Ghost Hunters, what he's found, that kind of thing, self-help techniques, self-help guides, that kind of thing, ways to learn information about stuff. So hopefully he'll be able to come through, but obviously he's a busy man.
Yep.
And he's off pretty much here, there and everywhere all the time. But if he can spend an hour a month or something just putting an art up, I think that would be great as well.
Yeah, look, I think that's absolutely wonderful. I mean, there is so much talent out there within the paranormal realm. Mate, listen, Dave, we've got about 4 minutes to go, mate. Look, just quickly, we've gone on a little tangents because we know each other. It's probably not a professional way to do it. But, mate, just quickly, some of your experiences over in the UK investigating, mate, look, obviously you love the field and you love doing what you do, which I think is fantastic, but you are open also to yourself, especially with new members within your group, aren't you? You like to give them the training they need before they go out, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I definitely believe in giving people heads up before they go out, and keeping new people by you. So, because at the end of the day, it could be just a simple thing as people freaking out, running around, and they fall down a hole.
Yep.
In an old building, and that's not paranormal event. It's just that somebody's freaked out, done a runner, and fallen down a place that's all even pre-marked with glow sticks or something like that.
Yep.
And so I do believe in definitely keeping people close, especially when they're new, just until you know they are conditioned enough to be able to stand their ground, not run out, but calmly walk away.
Yep.
So I, like yourself, I think very much mentoring is the way to go. To be a good feature, really.
All right, listen, Dave, mate, we've got to wrap it up tonight. Listen, thank you again for coming on the show. Look, I really enjoyed catching up with you, mate. We've had a lot of fun in the past.
As always.
We've had a lot of fun investigating in the past, and two of us getting in all sorts of trouble. But listen, if anyone wants to visit Dave's website, if you go to my website, you'll find Dave's link on my front page of my website. Look, if you need his help, he's there. So listen, we're going to call it quits tonight. Thanks again, Dave.
You're welcome, mate, and I look forward to the next investigation.
Yeah, we'll get around to it before I bugger off. Listen,
yeah, definitely.
So thanks everyone for listening. Look, play safe, investigate safe, and I'll catch you next week. Cheers.